Jim, our next question is sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Scott Gilliland. Let me get that right.
Galila.
Scott Gilliland.
I wonder if he's related to Greg the Office Boy.
He should have put that here. No relation, but he didn't, so we will just have to guess. In the days of strict kayfabe, how was travel handled for savage or wild men type wrestlers? Example, Kamala or the Missing Link. The story of Jerry Lawler pulling over Kamala. Yes, that's what it says. Pulling over Kamala.
Yeah.
Made me think about this question. I can't imagine James Harris just strolling out of the back of the Mid-South Coliseum and hopping in his car in front of fans.
Well, do you know, have we told the story of Lawler and Kamala?
I'm not sure if I know it, so I don't know if
Are you going fuck? All right, well, first of all, to answer the question, then maybe we'll end with the story because it's better than the answer to the question. In the territory days, it was easier for the crazy wrestlers to travel because most of them had a manager or they could hop in a car with one of the boys. They weren't sitting at the goddamn Cinnabon at the airport, right? Where you could go up and, hey, your flight's late too, huh? So it was easier in the territory days. Kamala in the Memphis territory and then in Louisiana had Friday, had his attendant, which because when they started the Kamala gimmick in Memphis, his manager was J.J. Dillon. They were working with the Florida territory at the time. Lawler was making shots down there. And to make Kamala different and even more dangerous, instead of giving him to Jimmy Hart, they said he was sent in by J.J. Dillon. And J.J. sent in videos and came in to work they even got Lawler and Hart together for a gimmick with Kamala and JJ. And then of course Hart turned on him again. But point being, so Friday was Buddy Wayne in a fucking military fatigues and a beekeeper's mask, but he was the mute handler for Kamala at the start. And he'd take the mask and the spear and all that stuff. And then later on, it was Frank Dalton in Louisiana. And didn't they have a kimchi in the WWF for a while with him?
Steve Lombardi.
Yes, brawler. So point being, a lot of the guys, the crazy guys, as he said, would have managers, or you wouldn't just see them really traveling in society. But the story...
Hey, what do you like better, Friday or kimchi?
Actually, I don't know that I liked either because the My Man Friday was not really fleshed out. We just kind of called him that. I don't even know if he had that as an official name. And then he was Friday in Louisiana, but that didn't make sense because Friday was not the assistant of a jungle beast. Friday was the guy from the jungle that was the assistant of who the fuck was it? Where are we going? Where am I going with this? In literature, My Man Friday. It was a famous book. You know, don't you? You're an educated man.
I don't know. Jacques Cousteau? I don't know.
No, it was the hitchhike, the goddamn it, that shipwreck.
Robinson Crusoe.
Robinson Crusoe and My Man Friday. There you go. Robinson Crusoe wasn't a jungle beast. He was the guy that was shipwrecked in the jungle. So it didn't really fit for the jungle savage to have Friday, anyway, nevertheless. And kimchi is a fucking Chinese dish, isn't it?
I don't know if it's Chinese. I think it may be Korean, but I'm not sure.
Whatever the case, it doesn't apply to Uganda.
No.
But the point is, a lot of times you would have to, unfortunately, drive your own car in those days, but the fans were kept away from the back door of the building in a lot of places because of security reasons. The heels having to be walked out by the cops. When he left the Mid-South Coliseum, we had fenced-in parking in the back of the building there, so most of the fans didn't see you. But the story with Lawler that he alluded to, and I swear to God, this is famous in the Tennessee territory. Lawler, back in those days, and I think Danny Davis may have been in the car with him. He may have had, that was when he was using Danny Davis as his babyface manager. But Kamala's in the territory, and he's driving one night late after the matches. It's pitch black after midnight, down Interstate 40 between Memphis and Jackson or whatever it is. And Lawler, because all the guys that drove the Tennessee territory, when you made the same towns every week for year after year after year, you knew all the stops, you knew all the exits, you knew the twists and turns in the road, and you also had equipment along with you where you could play ribs on people because the guys lived in their cars. You literally, if you worked the Memphis territory for 1 year, then you did 20,000 miles a year in your car just going from Nashville to Memphis and back. And that was just on Mondays. So anyway, Lawler sees Kamala in his old car driving down the road, and Lawler pulls up behind him, and Lawler's got the flashing red light. That was a big deal back in those days. You get a flashing light so you can act like a cop, or the CB radios, whatever the fuck. Guys would orchestrate ribs with each other. So Lawler pulls Kamala over with the flashing light. And there's Kamala. He's huge, and he's a black man, and it's in West Tennessee, and it's after dark in the middle of the night. And he's got the window rolled down because Lawler can see Kamala's arm resting on the door there. And he said, "All right, now, I want you to get out of the car, boy." Sound like fucking Sheriff Buford T. Justice, right? And Kamala gets that, "Don't look back here. Just keep turned away from me now, son." And Kamala stands up beside the car, and he's facing away from Lawler. And all he can see is that red light. He hears that Southern sheriff's voice. And so Lawler comes up behind Kamala. He's, "Now, don't you move." And he starts patting him down. And he pats him around the waist, right? Make sure he got no gun. Pats him around the side of his pockets there. And then he reaches his hand in between Kamala's legs, grabs his balls. And Kamala turned around and looked down, and there was Lawler looking up at him going, "Hi. Oh, God damn it, King."
This wasn't really about him driving a Gimmick, though, was it?
No, but it's just a funny story that, the caller happened to mention there. But yeah, so Kamala thinks he's got goddamn,
oh my God,
Bull Connor of the Birmingham Police Department pulled him over in the middle of the night, side of the road, fucking pitch black, nowhere, got nobody to turn to. And then the cop reaches in and between his legs and grabs his balls.
Who was Lawler with?
And that's why I said, I think it might have been Danny Davis was in the car with him. But I mean, it was ribs that you would fucking pull on guys. Anything for the Fargos having the naked midget in the trunk at toll booths. I've told some of the stories about the naked girls and or things going on with the dome light as you pass and it just depended on what it came to anybody's mind when they saw one of the boys.
Going back to the original question, in terms of the traveling for savages or wild men, like what about like the Mongolian Stomper? Did Bearcat Wright drive him when he managed him?
Well, that's the thing. Archie was a bit of a loner and quiet, kept to himself, but he always had a manager. And if he wasn't riding with a manager, he could ride with one of the other heels. And if you were at a spot show and the parking lot was round back in the dark underneath an oak tree and you snuck out or whatever, but it wasn't like today where there's a drone shot of all the wrestlers, appearing in front of the building 10 hours before the show's going to start. Guys were fucking pouring in between 10 minutes to 7 and 7 o'clock for an 8 o'clock show. And boom, you get there, you park, you rush in and do the same thing on the way out. It wasn't a big prolonged But now talking about flying, I've told this story before, but in the days before all of the security restrictions, Jim Crockett Promotions used to fly the Barbarian under the name A/Barbarian. That was the way his ticket was made out. I've seen it. And I heard him paged when they had to change the gate of a flight and they were alerting the passengers. They paged, is a Barbarian at gate 24, a Barbarian at gate 24, please call. You know, what?
And then he stands up. Yeah.
Yes.
Your name's Smalek? That's my impression of him in Body Sham. Body Sham.
Well,
Body
and
Slam.
Body Sham?
Body Slam.
And I know people are going to say bullshit, but I flew as Ole Anderson at twice, because if they bought tickets and the card changed or somebody left the territory, they would just, here, you take Ole's ticket and fucking go.
But again, to go back to the original question, should the Barbarian ever be seen driving a car? Should Abdullah the Butcher be seen by a fan ever behind the wheel of a car?
Well, if you shuck the corn right down to the cob, no, that does kind of give it away. But that's the thing. I've said it wasn't like a habitual thing where they were in widespread being seen going about their own business like they were just normal like you and me. There were managers or other heels or groups or people, bopping out in the darkness where it wasn't just on display, for a widespread audience. But no, if anybody did see them, and sometimes you did, that was kind of a dichotomy in terms of how they were presented versus what they were doing. But you be the one to go up to Abdullah and tell him don't drive that fucking car.
I'm the one who ran into Abdullah coming back from Fan Week in '95 in the airport in Atlanta. Me and Marty Gorman. Abdullah was there in his white suit. He stood out like a sore thumb. So I've seen it in real action.
That's an awful big thumb.